What's going on, guys? So if you're new to my YouTube channel, one of the things that I really love doing with my channel in particular is creating videos spotlighting some movies that I feel like don't get as much appreciation as they should. And I like talking about filmmakers that I think really contribute to the industry and that are great, especially for the indie world. And so today I want to talk about the Creep franchise, which I think are a great couple of movies in the horror genre that really kind of subvert your expectations and do something new with this material that's very familiar to people who love horror movies. Yeah, Creep's directed by Patrick Brice and stars Mark Duplass, and I have a very fond appreciation for both of these guys. Mark Duplass is someone who I think does a lot for the film community. I think that he's a great voice for independent filmmakers. He's an excellent producer. He's a great director. His brother Jay is also fantastic. I love all of the material they're involved in. They're clearly people who understand how the industry is supposed to work, but they approach things in their very own way. If you ever get a chance to read the book that Mark and Jay wrote, Like Brothers, it's very, introspective and looking at the industry as a whole and how you as a person who's an aspiring filmmaker can do the things that you want to do in your life, even if you approach them from your own way. They talk about a lot of the procedures that are followed in the filmmaking world and how they just hate them, and they decided they wanted to do things their own way, and they've been very successful both in acting and directing and producing and everything they're involved with. And I have a lot of respect for both of those guys, and I really think Mark does a great job in the community of being a voice for independent cinema. Patrick Brice as well. I love Patrick Brice's work. The Overnight in particular is a hilarious, really well-directed movie that everybody needs to see. Great performances. I really love the look of that movie, the feel of it. It's really comical. It's fantastic, and Patrick Brice has done a lot of films that more people need to check out. He has a new movie on Netflix that I still haven't seen yet called There's Someone Inside Your House. I'm really looking forward to it. I'll put a review up as soon as I watch it. I think Patrick's a great guy who does a lot of great work in the indie film world, and his work definitely deserves more recognition. So yeah, when talking about these movies, I'm going to get pretty in-depth into spoilers. If you've never seen them, this is my pitch recommendation for both of them. I think everyone should watch these movies. They're a lot of fun, and they are proof that you do not need a high budget to make an engaging, suspenseful, and entertaining film. Creep stars Patrick Brice as Aaron, who's someone looking for work on the internet, and he stumbles across this ad from a guy named Joseph who posts an ad online for $1,000 day of filmmaking and says, you can come out, film this for me, no questions asked, I'll pay you. And so he drives out into this small town to this cabin, and he gets out there and he meets Mark Duplass's character, Joseph. Joseph gives him this story about how his wife is pregnant and that his wife is about to give birth and that he has terminal cancer and that he's not gonna make it. And so what this is Joseph's character going to film this video for his child so that his child will know what he's like, how he is, and be kind of a guiding point as like a father posthumously, so that the son can have some sort of direction from their father. And so it's really interesting how this whole plot is introduced, and from the get-go, Mark Duplass's performance is so incredible in this movie because he gives off so many different personality traits and quirks very early on that you can tell that something's really off about him. But you feel bad for him, and you really do. Like, this story really pitches this idea that this is a father who's going to have a child going through something traumatic, and that this is his way of doing something good and doing something right by his family. And you can tell Patrick Brice's character is very put off by it at first, but he's like, well, the story, is so touching to him, or he's so involved in it that he just feels like he has to do it. And the first scene where Mark Duplass wants to film himself in the bathtub really gives you the initial feeling you're going to get through the rest of the film. And what I love about this, especially for its short runtime, is how things are introduced and how nothing is really spelled out to you as an audience member as far as like blatant expositional dialogue pouring out to you like who Mark Duplass's character eventually becomes. There's a lot of context clues given, and it's really interesting after you've watched the film, and obviously we know after the first film is over that Mark Duplass is a serial killer and he's a lunatic. You are introduced to little elements of his life through context clues, through phone calls. There are some monologues that Mark gives himself that you're kind of like, how much truth is involved in this? How much is he spinning the story? And I love that ambiguity of it, because I think his character is just like so multifaceted, and there's this really interesting element to him of just wanting to know more about his character, and then seeing Patrick Brice's reception to the things that he does. This weird, like, it turns into this buddy movie with then like Mark Duplass shows Patrick Brice that he's like infatuated with him and like gives him this heart necklace at some point. There's just a lot of wild things that happen, and you're given these really intense monologues. There's one scene where Mark Duplass and Patrick Brice get really drunk, and he tells the story of the Peach Fuzz mask, and like it's this weird like sex thing, and it goes kind of out of control, and you can tell that's really where Patrick Brice's character is like, holy fuck, what have I gotten myself into? But yeah, this is a movie that's really driven by performance, because obviously it's a person with a handheld camera. There's really not much more to it. The filmmaking style is just like if a person was gonna go shoot a home video for someone. And as far as found footage goes, you know, you always want a good explanation as to why the person keeps filming. And this movie justifies it really well, because Patrick Brice's character is so intrigued and interested about Mark Duplass that doesn't want to stop filming, because he wants to know what's going on with him. And then when things shift to where he's really starting to lose it, there's always a justification for why things are being filmed. And that's one of my biggest qualms with found footage movies. And this movie hits the nail on the head when it comes to that. Yeah, things between the two of them start to spiral out of control to where they have this like back and forth where Patrick Brice manages to escape Mark Duplass's house, and he goes back home, and Mark Duplass starts sending him this weird stuff in the mail, and like, you know, talking about like killing and all this stuff. And it's just, it gets to this really intense moment where you have this familiarity with Mark Duplass's character, but because of how the film progresses, you just really start to understand how much of a creep that he is, and it makes you scared for Patrick Brice's character. And like, he comes into his house one night, and just all this like really insane things that Mark Duplass does. And I think in the hands of a different actor it probably wouldn't work as well, but he manages to pull this off really well. And I think Patrick Brice is the perfect person to complement it in his performance. And the two of their back and forths, like seeing this thing where he feels like they're bonding at one point. They get to a restaurant early on in the film where Mark Duplass has said that he's been with his family multiple times, but then like has a slip up where Patrick Brice realizes like, hey, you know, this isn't right, like something is wrong. And those two really give such great performances, and they really make this movie what it is. Yeah, that's my thoughts on Creep. I think it's a fantastic film. It's so much fun to watch. Even now, knowing what the twist in the movie is, I still enjoy it just as much when I watch it again. I highly recommend checking it out. I think it's a lot of fun. And now I'm going to talk about the sequel to Creep, Creep 2. So Creep 2 stars Desiree Akhavan as Sarah, and she's in a similar situation to Patrick Brice's character, where she finds an ad online for shooting this video for a person, and wouldn't you know it, it is Mark Duplass's character again. And when we're introduced to him this time, you wonder as an audience member, how are they going to keep this premise engaging and fresh enough to where, you know, you don't want to stop watching. And Mark Duplass reveals to her very early on in the film that he is a serial killer, and she's so interested and like sort of enamored by him as a person that she just wants to see what's going on, because I think really at first she doesn't believe at all that he's killing people. It's great again, and like I said before in the first film, it's very performance driven, and this is all about Duplasse's performance, the way that he conveys this character, the way he makes you feel sympathy for him even though he's an awful person, and then turning it back on his head to where you're like, nope, don't feel bad for this guy anymore, he is a literal monster. And it's really interesting to watch his shift in this film. This is also directed by Patrick Brice. This one has a lot more of a comedic tone to it, and I think that works to the movie's benefit. There's a lot of comedy in the first film, but it ends up playing very straightforward to where it's very gritty and intense. This movie shows its comedic nature right out of the gate, and like there's a scene at the very beginning where Mark Duplass is talking about like the tension between the two people, and he's like, I think we should just see each other naked. And it's just so like, it feels very indicative of like Mark Duplass as an actor and like his performance, like even as far back as The League, and just the way that his comedy comes across. And the scene works really well, and it's really hilarious, and I think it shows the extremities of this person and just like how nuts they are. He has this incredible monologue sequence where he's in a hot tub later on, where his character shuts his music off, and he has this really like intense sequence talking about like why she needs to turn this music back on and the relationship between the two of them. And you can see Sarah's character feeling vulnerability of Mark Duplass, and like he's so insane and so good at manipulating people that he really makes her feel for him. And that's what I love about this movie, carrying on from the first film and trying to build something new. You have to keep it fresh and engaging, and having it revealed that he is a killer from the get-go makes it so much more interesting to watch how things play out, because you know things are going to go south. You understand that from the very beginning of the film, and it's just watching these little moments between these two characters and the seemingly blossoming relationship between the two of them, and then Sarah's character like really realizing like he is insane and that things are not going to work out well. And the third act of this movie is bonkers, and it's very suspenseful. It's a great third act to a found footage film, and it's executed really well. And I love the way they ended this movie, because according to Patrick Brice and Mark Duplass, this is going to be a trilogy. They plan on doing a third film, not sure when it's going to be released. Really looking forward to it whenever they decide to put it out, because these characters are so interesting, and especially Mark Duplass's character. And at the end of the second film, Sarah's character, unlike Patrick Brice's character, who does not make it out in the first movie, Sarah's character makes it, and we're shown a shaky cam footage of someone stalking her, seemingly Mark Duplass's character. And I'm really interested to see where Patrick Brice and Mark Duplass take the third film, because the second one really hits the nail on the head for me. I think it's that perfect tonal balance of comedy, suspense, horror, everything that you want in the movie, but it's also just a really fascinating character study. Duplass and Patrick Brice and all of their material are very focused on people. All of their films are about, studying people, understanding people, and especially in Duplass's career as a director, most of their movies take a very serious turn. And it's really fascinating the way, as for Joseph's character, if that's even his real name, the way we examine and see his transformation and are introduced these elements of his personality that it's almost like they make you feel like you should feel bad for him a little bit, but understanding just how much of a monster he really is and the terrible atrocities that he's willing to commit because he's nuts. And I really love that, delving into somebody's psyche so deeply, and this character who I've really grown to just be fascinated watching. And I think these movies benefit from a couple of rewatches, because I think they add some nice little touches in there through the dialogue of like seeing how Mark Duplass's character manipulates people. And it's one of my favorite parts of this franchise as a whole. That's my thoughts on the Creep series. I think you guys should definitely watch it. They're some of my favorite films in the found footage horror genre. I know like horror is a term that can be used loosely for most people. This could be perceived as a comedy in many ways, the second one especially. But yeah, I like that it's multifaceted, and my favorite horror movies are ones that are able to juggle multiple types of genre and being able to incorporate drama, suspense, real gritty horror. Being able to put all those things into one film is something that I as a viewer appreciate. And then that low budget feel without sacrificing the quality or the integrity of the piece is something else I really appreciate. And seeing this kind of like, hey, we have a concept, we're just gonna make it and we're gonna do whatever the fuck we want, is something that I really respect as a person who wants to be a filmmaker myself. So have you guys seen the Creep films? Do you love them? Do you hate them? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you think. Obviously, this is a couple of films that mean a lot to me. I love the filmmakers, as I talked about at the beginning of the video, and I think more people need to see all of their content. As always, if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel, I've got new content coming out weekly. I'm trying to release as many videos as I can right now. I've been really enjoying it. I've got ranked lists. I've got a whole bunch of horror stuff from the month of October. I've got some new release videos that I've put out. So if you guys want to check those out, I'll have a couple links at the end of the video. And obviously you can check out my channel homepage. I've got a bunch of stuff to look through if you haven't seen it yet. As always, thanks so much for watching, guys, and have a great rest of your day.